Coming up tonight on News Center Now, where were you 50 years ago? I was watching TV as Apollo 11 blasted off. We're going to talk about it tonight.
Speaking of that Apollo 11 mission, we'll meet a Mainer who was behind some of the designs on the module used.
Plus, we're back to verify some of your questions about that controversial CMP transmission line project. This is News Center Now.
50 years ago today, the human race launched an endeavor that led to one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The 1969 Apollo 11 mission was one of humanity's greatest achievements and was the end result of an initiative to beat the Russians to the moon. Good evening, everybody. I'm Lee Nelson.
And I'm Lindsay Mills. The anniversary of this event has been talked about by so many of us, and I'm sure so many of you all day today. The hashtags Apollo 11 and Apollo 50 have been trending all day with tons of posts about that launch and people remembering where they were when they watched it happen. This Saturday will be the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. So that brings us to our Pulse poll today. We want to know 50 years later if you think the landing on the moon was worth it.
Go ahead and weigh in on pulse.newscentermaine.com. You can scroll down to the Pulse section on our brand new mobile app as well. We'd love to hear your comments during our live stream as well, because we're going to be talking about the story throughout the broadcast. Now to some other news. A couple weeks ago, we answered your questions about whether Governor Mills' brother, Peter Mills, had any kind of tie to that controversial CMP transmission line, the project that, if approved, would bring power from Canada through Maine down to the New England electricity grid.
We were able to verify that he did in fact sit on a board of a nonprofit that works closely with CMP and one that has received money from the power company. That prompted even more questions from you at home. News Center's Samantha York is back now with more answers.
After our last verify about Governor Janet Mills' brother Peter Mills and his ties to the controversial CMP transmission line project, we were flooded with questions from you at home. Specifically, some of you wanted to know if Central Maine Power was behind the Western Mountains and Rivers Corporation, the nonprofit that Peter Mills sits on the board of. You wanted to know if CMP created that nonprofit. So let's verify. To find out, we spoke with Larry Warren, the nonprofit's founder. We also referenced these documents, the Articles of Incorporation filed with the state when the corporation was established. Warren explained that the idea for this charitable nonprofit came to him after learning more about the proposed transmission line project back in 2016. More specifically, when he saw it could possibly have an environmental impact on the Kennebec Valley area.
We talked with the board of Somerset Economic Development Corporation and advised that we were going to be involved in sort of an extensive due diligence process if any of these projects came up. We should begin a discussion to see if we could minimize the negatives and maximize the positives of the project.
Cue the creation of the Western Mountains and Rivers Corporation, an organization Warren says would work alongside CMP to serve as an unofficial watchdog group whose aim is to lessen the environmental impact the transmission line would have in the Kennebec Valley.
It appeared as though at some point in time the transmission line would be inevitable and that we should continue to work on trying to resolve the issues early on and to address solutions that could work for both CMP and for the communities.
These documents filed with the Maine's Secretary of State's office show the Articles of Incorporation for Western Mountains and Rivers Corporation. It's dated August 8th, 2017. The only signature on the document solidifying the nonprofit's creation is Larry Warren. So we can verify while CMP does work with the nonprofit, documents show the power company was not responsible for its creation as an organization. With your Verify, I'm Samantha York, News Center, Maine.
And of course, if you ever have something you would like us to look into, just send us an email at asknow@newscentermaine.com.
Yeah, and speaking of Central Maine Power, the company will no doubt come under fire this evening at the first of a series of hearings being held across the state, all part of the Maine Public Utility Commission's ongoing investigation into their billing issues. We're going to have much more about what you can expect at that hearing later on News Center at 5:30 and at 6 o'clock as well.
So this is the day where I've been chugging water, preparing for what's to come tomorrow.
For tomorrow, yeah. Yeah, the humidity. What a lovely summer day though today, Keith.
Today was nice, but yeah, tomorrow gets humid and then some heat for the weekend. So we got a little of everything in the summery stretch. Here are the dew points starting to creep up now into the low 60s over southwestern Maine, so getting to sticky to uncomfortable range. Temperatures, though, aren't uncomfortable. They're right around 80 degrees. That was official high in Portland, down to 76 with the sea breeze there. But most of us upper 70s, low 80s at this hour. I will say that I am surprised the fact that these clouds hold a few more showers than I would have thought. So there's the satellite, still clean along much of the coastline. But watch, a couple of these showers are making it right now all the way into York and Cumberland County. So really light stuff. But admittedly, the forecast had the showers dying out over western Maine, and they're just not doing that so far. To the north, they're a little bit heavier over Aroostook County specifically, and down all the way to Greenville. There's some showers in there, no thunderstorms, but just a sprinkle possible here in the next few hours. After that, we go partly cloudy overnight. And tomorrow, yeah, it's just a really sticky day, and it's a weird kind of warm day because we start out, as you can see, in the 70s in a lot of spots. And then we're into the 80s by the middle of the day. There will be showers and thunderstorms really throughout the day. Best chance of severe weather is late afternoon. We'll keep an eye on those storms. But guys, it's conceivable we start at 73, we end at 85 and humid, and don't see the sun at any point during that stretch.
Okay.
Okie dokie, Keith, thanks.
Well, before we take a break, we want to take one quick look at our pulse poll tonight. Do you think landing on the moon was worth it so far?
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, 87% of you saying yes. And it seems that way, too, on our Facebook live stream, the conversation. Okay. Real quick, a comment so far from Anita. She says, I remember the moon landing. I watched it with my grandmother, who was in her 80s at the time. And she said to her that she never thought she would live to see people walk on the moon.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, incredible.
So cool.
We'll be talking more about it throughout the broadcast, too. And again, it was 50 years ago today that Apollo 11 launched, so the eventual goal was to send those astronauts to the moon.
Yeah, we're going to have the story of one of the original engineers of the space program who proves you can get there from here. All right, some other headlines tonight. More people are dying from accidental injuries. That's according to a new study from the CDC out today. The death rate from unintentional injuries increased by 40% between 1999 and 2017. The three leading causes of these kinds of injuries are from traffic accidents, drug overdoses, and falls.
Doctors may one day be able to diagnose Alzheimer's with a blood test. There was a study done in Japan. Scientists collected blood samples from more than 200 people, including some who did have Alzheimer's. And the test was able to detect the buildup of a protein linked to that disease at an early stage 88% of the time. Right now, brain changes can only be detected through extensive brain scans or testing for specific proteins in spinal fluid. But as is often the case, the scientists caution that more research is needed.
And a look at bullying today. Many teens are victims of it. Often it happens at school, but not always. According to a new federal report, 20% of middle and high school students say they were bullied during the 2016-2017 school year. Girls were more likely to be victims of that, which included being the subject of rumors, being insulted or called names. 15% said they experienced cyberbullying. All right, when we come back, a Maine connection to the famous Apollo 11 launch 5 decades ago.
And Keith is our connection to the forecast, of course, and that's next on Now.
Engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
That right there, 50 years ago today. Apollo 11 leaving Earth, eventually, of course, dropping 3 American astronauts right on the moon, or actually 2 on the moon, the 3rd staying in the command module, of course.
Exactly. George Krasner, who you see behind us and you're about to meet, he was one of the original engineers for the space program, and without his expertise and innovation, they may have never gotten there from here.
We copy you down, Eagle.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
An astonishing feat.
It was scary, in a way.
The crew of Apollo 11 went where no one has gone before.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin leaving the first footprints ever on the moon as Michael Collins waited in lunar orbit. A moment that made the human race pause and recognize what had just happened.
I was actually at home watching on TV. Nothing thrilling about that.
One of those people was George Krasner.
There was a lot of disbelief. A lot of people thought that we were doing this for propaganda and that we were doing this so that we could show equality with the Russians.
His innovation and expertise in an emerging field.
When I first started in the space program, there were no computers, there was no Google, and no information.
Were key in helping get the crew to the moon and back.
I designed the fuel gauging system for the command module. That's where the 3 astronauts actually were. And that was for Apollo 11, and it was used in all of the Apollo shots.
2, 1, 0. All engine running.
But before Krasner and others at the space program could send people to the moon, they had to figure out how to put something else in orbit, something we all take for granted today, satellites.
We wanted to experiment, so we decided we have this material, which is like that.
Those experiments led to many inventions.
And we got there with being the first in the world without really knowing many of the things that would happen.
Take this prototype, for example, a power supply used on the very first communication satellite.
We just did that as a what if, just in case, and we encased our electronics in that same foam that they used in houses.
It went on the first satellite called SCORE, which helped broadcast a human voice from space for the first time.
Unfortunately, this doesn't have a fast forward.
A message from President Dwight Eisenhower in December of 1958.
Through this unique means, I convey to you and to all mankind America's wish for peace on earth and goodwill toward men everywhere.
That's it.
How does that make you feel listening back to it?
Nostalgic.
Krasner also did a lot of the design work for the first weather satellite that transmitted pictures from space, like this one of Florida.
The resolution today is 1,000,000 times better.
What started as guesswork eventually evolved into results. Those results proving anything is possible if you try. And at 90 years old, Krasner says it's a lesson that's helped him achieve what was thought to be impossible.
8, 7, 6, 5. Work stage. Engine arm ascent. Proceed. Beautiful.
A moment that hasn't lost its glow 50 years later.
When I look at the moon, literally I stare at it and visualize men walking around picking up rocks.
I just love that. By the way, we have way more at our website with George about his memorabilia from space that
Sure.
Unfortunately he lost that, and it's actually
Right.
a funny story. You'll have to check it out.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to share real quick, as promised, I said I'd bring in some stuff that I have collected, including the Times
How cool.
headline, Men Walk on the Moon. Of course, this was the blast-off day. The moon walk was a couple of days afterward. But my father was an anchorman, and he was covering this, and so it was very important in our household. And you know what's interesting as you reread these articles is I mean, what did everyone want to know? What's it like on the surface of the moon? You know, are you going to step in and sink through? And so Neil Armstrong talks about how he felt fine, and it was a light powdery feeling, and he was very comfortable in his suit, and it's just fascinating to kind of reread this stuff because it was the first time for this otherwise inconceivable thing.
Right.
You know?
Voyage
So,
to the moon, and people
yeah.
were watching all over
all over the world. Yeah, absolutely.
Sinking in, that's an interesting concept. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you wouldn't know for sure what it would
Yeah.
be. By the way, George is not 90. I'm sorry. Like,
Right?
I'm gonna, like I said, I'll give him 80.
He looks amazing.
And that's not someone who like, you say it as a compliment. Oh, I didn't realize you. Like, I literally was astonished by that.
Yeah.
I was doing the backwards math. I'm like, if he's only 73, how is it possible that he even worked in this?
Yeah,
All
no,
right.
he's
It's
90.
amazing.
So really, we
Sure.
need to go back and do an interview on like what his skincare routine is.
Yeah, what's his
These are the
diet?
answers that Maine wants. Forget about the moon.
Exactly.
Current dew points, 60s in a lot of spots, getting sticky into that uncomfortable range as we promised that they would by this afternoon and into the evening. We've got some clouds out there right now moving through southern coastal Maine into the mid-coast. As I mentioned, I'm surprised that a couple of these showers are holding together. They're really, really light, and I'd be interested to see how much of this is actually hitting the ground. But certainly it's interacting with our sea breeze. See that right there? That's our sea breeze pushing on shores, interacting with these showers. To the north, they're much more consistent, though, moving into northern Maine as really just some moderate shower activity. So a sprinkle possible over the next few hours. After that, we go partly cloudy. It's a pretty sticky night. Temperatures don't drop very much at all. In fact, there's a brief period of time late tonight where we might tick up a few degrees on the way to tomorrow morning. We'll be right around 70 to 72 tomorrow morning when a lot of us wake up. Tomorrow's not a good looking day. Don't think, oh, I'm going to go to the beach tomorrow. It's not that kind of day. It's a humid day. It's a warm day. I think a lot of us push into the mid 80s despite the lack of sunshine. Showers and thunderstorms popping up all through the day. Best chance of the strong storms, though, will be late afternoon, early evening. That front comes through. It's a backdoor cold front. And then Thursday, we get a break as far as the humidity and the heat go. We're back into the 70s. It's cloudy over southern Maine with a scattered shower. Over central northern Maine, it's mostly sunny to partly cloudy. And then back to the warmth on Friday and straight up heat on Saturday. So there's your backdoor cold front. When it comes in from a kind of an odd direction, we call it a backdoor cold front. And there's our break on Thursday as far as the heat goes. Back to the warmth. It's tolerable on Friday. And the signals on Saturday, guys, are super warm. At the mid-levels of the atmosphere, at the surface, there's just no reason we shouldn't get there. And so we don't take 100 lightly, right? But that's what I've got in Sanford. 99 in Freiburg, could be 100 there too. 94, 95 in Portland, 95 in Waterville. So your only chance, go to Bar Harbor. Lovely this time of the year. As it turns out, honestly, it wouldn't shock me if they briefly spiked pretty warm too, but they won't be able to maintain it because it just doesn't happen. So July to date so far, 1 day below average, the rest above. What a recovery, obviously, from what we saw in June, and that's across the board statewide there. So again, hot this weekend. I don't know how many fans Saturday will make. What I'm hearing about Saturday is generally it's such a short season, fine.
Right.
That's kind of,
Right.
and I think you get that goodwill in July. If you keep it going into August and early September, then you start to lose that. You know,
Okay.
snow's the same way. Yeah, we live in Maine, snow's great.
Right.
And then in
Not
April,
in-
people,
Right, yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Over it.
But it will be almost dangerously hot on Saturday, so just be aware of that.
Be careful.
All right, we'll
Okay.
do. All right, Keith, thanks very much. This next story surprised me a little bit. A new report says that Maine is the top spot in the country for owning vacation homes.
Yeah, speaking of Bar Harbor, as Keith mentioned, the report was done by an organization called IPX 1031. It ranks the states based on the percentage of homes that were considered vacation homes. Maine's ratio was 19%. Vermont came in at number 2 with 17%. New Hampshire was third at 12%. And breaking those numbers down further, 64% of Cape Neddick's homes are considered vacation homes. In Winter Harbor, it's just over 50%. In Castine, just under 50%. Illinois was ranked the lowest state with a total of just 1% of vacation
Isn't that
homes
interesting?
there. That is really interesting. They're probably all in Chicago too.
And check out what some scuba divers recently came across. Yikes. They
Yikes.
spotted this jellyfish that was as big as a person or larger. Lizzie Daly is a wildlife biologist, and she was exploring the waters off the southwestern coast of England when a barrel jellyfish appeared. She explained in her video that she'd never seen a barrel fish or any jellyfish that big. No word if it freaked her out, but I'm going to go out there and say that it would have freaked me out. if I saw that thing.
That's in my nightmares.
Yikes.
That is right out of my nightmares. Oh
And
my
it's probably
gosh.
completely harmless, but still.
But
right?
still, stay away
Yeah.
from those tentacles. Ugh.
Yeah. All right, let's check in with Cindy, see what's coming up at 5:30. Hey, Cindy.
Hi, guys. We have been reporting for months about just how angry CMP ratepayers are about outrageously high bills that the company kept saying were correct, about CMP's corridor project running power through Maine from Canada to Massachusetts. So tonight, the public gets to weigh in on all of this, and it promises to be really intense. We're going to take you there. Plus, Amazon Prime Day has been extended to 2 full days, and before time runs out tonight, we want you to know that there is a way to get some great deals, but also give back to Maine charities and not-for-profits. All you have to do is think, smile. It's all coming up at 5:30.
Okay, sounds good.
See you guys in a bit. We're back with Raindrops after this. One last check of our Pulse poll results tonight. Do you think sending astronauts to the moon was worth it 50 years ago? 86% of you saying yes, it was.
And those who say no, I wonder why.
Yeah.
Do we get any
Maybe
answers?
funding?
I guess so.
We didn't really
Speaking
get
of
any comments about that.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
So a lot of people have asked, like, why have we not been back? Which is a fair question because it's something we did 50 years ago, and usually we repeat those things. Funding, desire, right? So George was saying it wasn't just about Russia, and for him it probably wasn't. For most of the country and for the funding it was, though. Okay, so Russia had put Sputnik up and people were freaking out about that, thinking it could be used as a weapon in the future or being able to put things in space. So this is NASA's funding as a percentage of the total US government budget. Notice it spikes right around the moon landing and then it's back down, and it's been diminishing actually in recent years as well. So this is just simply a case of motivation. Once the funding was gone, the motivation was gone to show that we could do it. The money started to dry up. And let's switch to the next graphic if we have it. And that's not just as a percentage, even in just constant dollars. They had more of 2014 dollars than we did in 2014, meaning it's not just an inflation situation and whatnot. We're just not funding it the same way. There's been a little bit of renewed interest on that. President Trump has talked about maybe wanting to go back to the moon, and certainly going to Mars is a whole nother ball game. But it's all about desire. And one last idea is the Concorde, right? The supersonic flight that we were doing. We were getting from New York to Paris in about 3 hours. Came down to cost. We can do it. We could do it that fast. We could do it again. But what's the cost of that? What's the business model of that? And that's where NASA kind of just ran out of some steam after the moon landing.
Interesting. All right. That does it for us on Now. News Center Maine at 5:30 starts right now.